France in the early 1800s was an empire reborn. A nation transformed by revolution now stood at the apex of European power under one man, Napoleon Bonaparte. This was an era of unprecedented ambition. From 1804 to 1815, Napoleon crowned himself emperor and rebuilt Paris into an imperial capital to rival ancient Rome. Thanks to advanced AI software and historical paintings, we can now recreate these magnificent scenes with remarkable accuracy. By analyzing actual early 19th century artworks and architectural plans, we're able to show how Napoleonic France looked, the grand monuments, the imperial ceremonies, and the atmosphere of an empire at its zenith. This allows us to step back over 200 years and experience France as citizens of the First Empire once did. This is the most momentous day in French imperial history. The interior of Notre-Dame Cathedral transformed into a theater of power and pageantry. On December 2, 1804, Napoleon Bonaparte crowned himself Emperor of the French in this Gothic masterpiece. Notice the cathedral decorated with crimson velvet drapes spotted with golden bees. The ancient symbol Napoleon chose to link his dynasty with the Merovingians, the founders of France itself. At the altar stands Pope Pius VII, who traveled all the way from Rome to witness this unprecedented ceremony. But see how Napoleon takes the crown from the papal hands and places it upon his own head. A symbolic gesture proclaiming that his authority came not from divine right, but from his own achievement and the will of the French people. The scene is breathtaking. Empress Josephine kneels before her husband in a magnificent silver brocade gown embroidered with gold, her velvet mantle lined with ermine and decorated with golden bees. Over 2 million spectators filled Paris that day. The ceremony lasted 3 hours before thousands of guests, including ambassadors, marshals, and members of Napoleon's family. Interestingly, Napoleon's mother refused to attend in protest of family disputes. Yet the painter Jacques-Louis David would later include her in his monumental canvas. The festivities continued for 2 weeks with church bells chiming, fireworks illuminating the Parisian sky, and formal dances throughout the capital. This ceremony cost 8.5 million francs and marked the birth of the First French Empire. This is the Tuileries Palace, Napoleon's principal residence and the beating heart of imperial France from 1800 to 1815. Looking from the Seine River, you see the magnificent complex that served French monarchs for centuries. Napoleon moved into the Tuileries on February 19, 1800, as first consul, occupying the same apartments where Louis XIV, Louis XV, and Louis XVI once slept. The palace connected directly to the Louvre through the Grande Gallery, creating one continuous seat of power. Notice the architectural splendor designed by Napoleon's favored architects, Charles Percier and Pierre Fontaine. They transformed the interiors with the Empire style, characterized by rich mahogany furniture, gilded bronzes, and sumptuous silk draperies from Lyon. The walls were decorated with bold colors, crimson red, imperial green, and golden yellow, often draped with fabric to evoke the military campaign tents that followed Napoleon across Europe. At the ground floor of the South Wing in 1811, the King of Rome was born, Napoleon's only legitimate son with his second wife, Marie-Louise of Austria. This building witnessed the height of Napoleon's glory and his final departure in 1815, never to return. This is the Arc de Triomphe at the western end of the Champs-Élysées, Napoleon's most iconic architectural legacy. On August 15, 1806, Napoleon laid the first stone of this monumental triumphal arch to honor his Grande Armée after their stunning victory at Austerlitz. Inspired by the ancient Roman Arch of Titus, this colossal structure stands 50 meters high and 45 meters wide, the largest triumphal arch in the world. Look at the immense scale of this monument. Although Napoleon commissioned it in 1806, he never saw it completed. Construction continued for 30 years, finally finishing in 1836, 15 years after Napoleon's death. The vault beneath is decorated with Roman-style coffering and bears the names of 128 battles fought under the Republic and Empire, along with the names of generals who commanded French armies. The 4 massive sculptural groups on the pillars include François Rude's masterpiece, The Departure of the Volunteers, also known as La Marseillaise. This arch was Napoleon's statement to Europe and the world. France had risen from revolution to become an empire of unmatched military prowess. This is the Place Vendôme, dominated by Napoleon's spectacular column celebrating his greatest military triumph. The Vendôme Column, erected between 1806 and 1810, was directly modeled on Trajan's column in Rome, standing 44 meters tall. The entire column is wrapped in a spiral bas-relief cast from the bronze of 1,200 cannons captured from the Russian and Austrian armies at the Battle of Austerlitz in December 1805. The spiral frieze depicts scenes of the military campaign, from the departure of the Grande Armée to the final victory. Originally, a statue of Napoleon dressed as a Roman emperor crowned the summit, though this was replaced and modified several times throughout history. The column was designed by architects Jacques Gondouin and Jean-Baptiste Leperre, representing Napoleon's obsession with linking his empire to the glories of ancient Rome. Standing in this elegant square, surrounded by some of the most expensive addresses in Paris, this column served as a constant reminder to Parisians and foreign visitors alike. France under Napoleon had achieved what no European power had accomplished since the Caesars. This is the Rue de Rivoli, Napoleon's bold solution to Paris's medieval chaos. Named after his 1797 victory over the Austrians at Rivoli, this wide new street was begun in 1802, stretching from the Place de la Concorde past the Tuileries Gardens to the Place des Pyramids. Before Napoleon, Paris was a maze of narrow, muddy lanes where pedestrians struggled through filth mixed with horse excrement. Enterprising Parisians would lay planks over the mud and charge people to cross. Notice the revolutionary design by Percier and Fontaine, elegant arcaded facades with uniform neoclassical architecture creating covered walkways for pedestrians. The buildings feature strict geometric symmetry, a hallmark of empire architecture. These arcades housed luxury shops selling silks, jewelry, and books, transforming this street into one of the most fashionable in Europe. The Rue de Rivoli represented Napoleon's vision for Paris as a modern imperial capital with improved traffic circulation, dignified public spaces, and rational urban planning. This street became the template for Baron Haussmann's later transformation of Paris under Napoleon III. This is the Église de la Madeleine, one of Paris's most striking buildings and Napoleon's grandest architectural statement. On December 2, 1806, exactly 2 years after his coronation, Napoleon signed a decree to construct a temple to the glory of the Grande Armée. He wanted a Roman-style temple completely surrounded by Corinthian columns, without a traditional Christian cross or facade. Architect Pierre Vignan designed this magnificent structure modeled on the Maison Carrée in Nîmes, a Roman temple from the 1st century. The building is surrounded by 52 towering columns, each 20 meters high, creating a peristyle temple unlike any church in France. The pediment depicts the Last Judgment, though this was added decades later. Napoleon envisioned this as a hall of fame for his marshals and generals, a monument where the names and deeds of French military heroes would be immortalized. Though construction began in 1806, Napoleon never saw it completed. After his downfall, King Louis XVIII ordered it converted into a Catholic church, which was finally consecrated in 1842. Still, the building's Roman grandeur and imposing presence remain Napoleon's vision cast in stone. This is the smaller but equally magnificent Arc de Triomphe du Carrousel, built between 1806 and 1810 by Percier and Fontaine. Inspired by the Arch of Septimius Severus in Rome, this triumphal arch served as the ceremonial entrance to the Tuileries Palace courtyard. Its rose-colored marble columns are adorned with statues representing soldiers from the Grande Armée. Originally, a spectacular quadriga crowned the arch, 4 bronze horses stolen by Napoleon from St. Mark's Basilica in Venice, symbols of his conquest of Italy. These ancient Greek horses, created in the 4th century BC, were Napoleon's most prized artistic trophies. When Napoleon fell in 1815, the Venetians demanded their return, and they were sent back to Venice where they remain today. The current quadriga you see is a replica added in 1828, depicting peace riding in a chariot drawn by 4 horses. This arch stood directly in line with the Champs-Élysées, creating a grand imperial axis from the Louvre through the Tuileries to the Arc de Triomphe de l'Étoile in the distance. This is the Place de la Concorde, the largest square in Paris and witness to some of the most dramatic moments in French history. During the Revolution, this square, then called Place de la Révolution, saw the guillotine claim the lives of King Louis XVI and Queen Marie Antoinette. By Napoleon's time, the square had been renamed Place de la Concorde, symbolizing reconciliation and the end of revolutionary bloodshed. In 1806, Napoleon began constructing the Rue de Rivoli along the northern edge of this square, connecting it to his new imperial avenue. The square served as the gateway between the Tuileries Palace and the Champs-Élysées, making it central to imperial processions and celebrations. After Napoleon's death, on December 15, 1840, over 1 million Parisians gathered here to witness his funeral cortege passing from the Arc de Triomphe down the Champs-Élysées, across the square, toward Les Invalides where his remains would be interred. The procession featured a chariot 30 meters long and 10 meters high, drawn by 16 horses, carrying Napoleon's sarcophagus back to the city he had transformed. This is the Musée Napoleon, what we know today as the Louvre Museum. Napoleon transformed the former royal palace into the greatest art museum in the world, filled with masterpieces plundered from his military campaigns across Europe. The Grande Gallery, connecting the Louvre to the Tuileries, became a showcase for paintings and sculptures seized from Italy, Austria, Holland, and Spain. Here you would find works by Leonardo da Vinci, Raphael, Titian, and Veronese, all taken as spoils of war. The museum opened to the public, demonstrating Napoleon's claim that France had become the new center of European civilization, heir to the glories of Renaissance Italy and ancient Rome. Percier and Fontaine redesigned the interiors in Empire style, with crimson silk wall hangings, gilded frames, and neoclassical decoration. After Napoleon's defeat in 1815, many of these artworks were returned to their original locations, though France managed to retain a significant portion. The Louvre remains Napoleon's most enduring cultural legacy, establishing the model for national museums worldwide. This is the Hôtel National des Invalides, originally built by Louis XIV as a hospital for wounded soldiers. Napoleon expanded its role as the center of military glory. Under the magnificent Golden Dome, designed by Jules Hardouin-Mansart and completed in 1706, Napoleon commissioned new monuments to honor French military victories. But Les Invalides' greatest significance came decades after Napoleon's death. On December 15, 1840, 19 years after Napoleon died in exile on the remote island of St. Helena, King Louis Philippe ordered the return of his remains. Napoleon had written in his will, "I wish my ashes to rest on the banks of the Seine, among the French people whom I loved so much." His wish was fulfilled. His body was brought back to Paris in a grand ceremony, and he was entombed in a crypt directly beneath the Golden Dome in a massive sarcophagus of red quartzite from Finland, surrounded by a gallery of 12 statues representing his military victories. Today, Les Invalides also houses his son, the King of Rome, and his brothers Joseph and Jerome Bonaparte. This monument stands as the final resting place of the man who transformed France and reshaped Europe. History has left us countless paintings, engravings, and architectural monuments from Napoleon's empire. Each building, each monument, each carefully planned boulevard tells the story of a man who sought to rival the Caesars and the kings of old. From the grandeur of his coronation to the magnificence of his imperial capital, Napoleon Bonaparte left an indelible mark not just on France but on the entire world. Tell us in the comments, which location from Napoleon's empire would you like to explore in greater detail? Which battles, personalities, or architectural wonders fascinate you most? Your choice could be featured in our next video. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next journey through history.